Benisa. I'm from Tongmyong University, Department of Computer Engineering in Busan, South Korea. And today I will present about my paper, a study of multi-person, of 2D multi-person pose estimation distance scaling on images. First are the table of contents. So I divided into the 5 parts: the introduction, related studies, where I will have a brief explanation of open pose model, multi-person 2D pose estimation, and 2D and 3D pose estimation. And then next is the proposed multi-person 2D to 3D pose estimation and scaling. So this tackles our distance scaling algorithm. And then on the next chapter is a brief experimentation and analysis and some explanation of a design limitation and consideration. And finally, the conclusion. So to start in our introduction, image processing led to many studies on object detection from 2D RGB images, video footages, and real-time camera streams. Many methods utilize deep convolution neural networks, or CNNs, and have improved in accuracy while also publishing their data and findings in the internet. So the 3D representation of a 2D images is a difficult task with many researchers focusing on this field. A single person 3D pose estimation usually crops human figures in images by bounding boxes as predicted by pre-trained human detection model. The aim of this study is to use multi-person approach in human detection module before feeding the cropped part of the image into the 3D human pose estimation module. And finally, make a scale estimation of distances between the key points and the 3D human pose. So, one of our base or the one of the reference for the proposed model is the OpenPose model. So what is OpenPose? OpenPose is an open source project developed in Carnegie Mellon University, which applied real-time multi-person system to detect human body, hand, facial, and foot key points. They identified a total of 135 key points in an image with a single person. So an image below is an image they have on their website, on their GitHub page, that shows the different key points connected to estimate a human pose. So this will be the basis of our 2D to 3D distance scaling. Next is the multi-person 2D pose estimation. So in comparison to OpenPose, there are some studies that uses multi-person 2D pose estimation. So they use this to train object detection models, and this approach was called multi-person pose estimation in the wild. And this is a top-down approach consisting of 2 stages, where the first stage is to predict the location and scale of the bounding boxes likely to contain human figures. So as seen below, this is an example of a top-down approach where first is to identify the human figure, and then within this bounding box, you move to the second stage. So the second stage estimates key points of the person containing in the box. So this method first locates the human figure and bounded in a box, bounding boxes, and then then you assign the key points based on the human figure found in the box. Next is the 2D to 3D pose estimation. So one other paper used the fusion of neural network of two images of 2D human pose by using heat maps to estimate their key points. Two images are from different angles of a camera, and the fusion layer is where heat maps of two images are fused together. The system used recursive pictorial structure model to represent 3D pose from the estimated multi-view of 2D heat maps. So, the image below, this is from the paper. They showed uh, a standing man and a woman in a yoga position. So the standing man, this image was actually taken several times in different angles. So they were taken using different camera angles, and then these camera angles are fused with each heat maps of the human figure. So the key points of the human, usually the joints on the arms, the legs, the shoulders, and when they are interconnected together, they form a pseudo-human figure, as seen on the left side, on the beside the picture of the man standing, and also on the woman doing the yoga pose. So for our paper, in our multi-person 2D to 3D pose estimation and scaling, so we use a distance scaling algorithm, a simple algorithm. So the proposed structure of the study is divided into three parts: the image capture, streaming module, open pose algorithm module, and the distance estimation. These modules work with the image or stream as the input data, while open pose algorithm utilize existing deep neural network models such as the COCO dataset to determine the weight file and the body parts labeling to produce the estimated human pose from the input data. Then, once we have the estimated human, once the image or the video already detected the human pose, this is where our distance scaling algorithm is applied, which is the ear and torso key point mapping and the ear and torso distance estimation, which is a pixel distance scaling to real distance. So how this works is the main contribution of the proposed system is the distance scaling applied after the estimated 3D pose from OpenPose model and 2D to 3D multi-person pose estimation. So to achieve the distance scaling, the human pose estimation is essential since key points produced from OpenPose can be used to anchor specific parts of the human body. So OpenPose uses, in our case, the OpenPose we use first identifies the human figure, then applies 17 key points that corresponds to mostly our joints and face. And the 2D RGB image is marked with OpenPose key points. And the reason for using the distance between the ear and the torso for determining the scale is because face will always appear larger when near the camera and will also appear smaller when far away from the camera. On the image below, this is the steps on how we apply our algorithm. First is the 2D RGB image, then the applying open pose model. We uh, relocate the different key points, and then from all these key points, we will only use the ear, right ear in this case, and the torso. So these two key points will be connected, and this pixel distance between the ear and the torso will be the ratio to tell us the distance between the camera and the subject. So in our experiment, we first test the validity of the scale uh, in, uh, in, in several distances as were set as standards as seen below in the table. The result shows that there is very little difference between the proposed distance scaling and the actual distance of the test subject. This validates the correlation of distance between ear and torso key points to the real space distance of the test subject. As seen here, so the actual test distance between the object or the subject and the camera is about 1 meter. Then we tested the ear to torso pixel distance ratio into meters, and we achieved a 1.11 meter real 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 space distance. As with 1.5 meters of actual distance, we we came up with about 1.43 meters, and for 2 meters 2.19 meters, and for 2.5 about 2.23, and for the 3 meters about 3.26 meters. So the average error distance of this paper is about 3.87% by root mean square error, which is represents very little error that can be caused by the noise on the open pose system when determining the key points for the ear and the torso. So the estimated distance are represented in blue spheres from the test with actual distances of test subjects 1 meter, 1.5, 2 meters, 2.5, and 3 meters. So as seen below, while the red line represents the linear regression of Euclidean distance of pixel versus the estimated distance on meters. So the Euclidean distance is the pixel distance between the ear and the torso, and then we translated it into a uh, real space distance of meters, and this is our result. So uh, when doing the experiment, we considered some design limitations, and since the paper is still an ongoing study and experimentation is not yet done on a full scales, many limitations are and considerations are applied. So for now, only applicable in 2D images, and then we require more testing and more implementation with the knowledge of using 3D pose dataset from Human 3.6M and PII. These are different datasets that can be applied in open pose model. So in this paper, we considered COCO dataset, which uses 17 key points. These 17 key points would represent the human skeleton. Also, distance scaling is based on the estimation of the Euclidean distance between the key points and of the ear and the torso of the human skeleton derived from open pose. So knowing the distance between the camera source and the human figure will give the, the scale of the 2D image. And finally, for our conclusion, so open pose showed a very accurate identification of skeletal key points to represent a human figure, and it also correctly identified pose estimation of multi-persons in 2D images. This paper's goal is to utilize the identified key points and transform the 2D image to real space by calculating the distance of the human figure from the camera, giving it a scale in 3D space. The results showed a high performance with only about 3.87% error distance, but despite the high accuracy of the proposed system, more tests should be conducted using longer distances, and further study should be made on the application of the open pose in the distance scaling in real time. And that ends my presentation. Thank you very much.